Hello there and welcome to a video exactly 1 week on from when I posted my review of the original Venator playset. I say the original, but it really is the only Venator playset we have got from Lego. They've just released the UCS version. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a picture up on screen. It does look amazing, but I think the upgrades that I've done to my Venator are enough to keep me from spending the massive £560 that the UCS one costs. Of course, you are getting enough bricks and the giant scale of it with that huge price tag, alongside two very unique figures that we probably won't see for a long time from Lego. However, if you didn't want to spend the money, I would recommend buying the original and even upgrading some of the parts like I have in today's video. Now, as I've mentioned, it's been exactly a week, so I've had a week to go over it and perfect all the little modifications I have made for today's video. And at some point I decided that rather than just improving the Venator and making it a bit closer to scale, I'll actually be changing it to look like Anakin's Resolute, which was of course his personal Venator, the one we will be getting in UCS scale, which does come with Rex and Yularen. If you've seen any videos on this channel, you might already know that I've created my own custom Rex and Yularen, who most recently you can see when I stacked the minifigures on my new Lego Star Wars minifigure display. But I will be showing them off later on in this video, as they accompany this ship so nicely, and of course they are the minifigure of choice for the UCS scale. Now, the Venator's been on your screen long enough that you've perhaps noticed some of the bigger differences, like the triangular shape of the dark red design on this nose piece here, and also the custom Republic logo that I've bricked out instead of having the 6x6 printed plaque. Now, you probably could still fit the 6x6 stickered plaque, as we still do not have it printed in both UCS and Playscale sets. However, I do like the fact that you can just brick it out. It is just simply a rounded off red brick with the little tan plate in the middle, which is easy enough. And I've even included the little details on the side with some metallic grill tiles just to the right of it. Now, this is mimicked on the other side, so whilst you can only really see one side of the Venator, it took me long enough playing around with camera angles just to get the whole thing on your screen. But that goes for the front and back, is both mimicked left and right side. The only difference is perhaps the play feature on the other side has a little stick sticking out here which still functions. You can still drop the bombs just as you would in the original playset. And one of the main differences I've made with my version of the Venator is that as I decreased it about a brick's height from the height of the other build, which just closes up some of the front really nicely and stops any gaps appearing, especially under this piece. There was a gap in the original Venator and now that's flush with the plate at the bottom. However, it does mean that I cannot fit the gun in the back here, so it's sort of an empty space, and you could pop off one of these wings and fill it with clone troopers, perhaps have some 332nd as well as 501st to represent the final scene that clearly Lego want us to show with the Captain Rex that was included. However, it did also come with Yularen, who I guess is over with Anakin above Coruscant trying to save the Chancellor. So I'm not sure the Venator is exactly from any of the scenes, but we do know that this doesn't show up in Revenge of the Sith or Attack of the Clones and is only for the Clone Wars, which both minifigures show up so heavily. And of course the main difference being the dark red bridges, which I didn't have enough pieces to customize as I'd like, as the original playset does have a round 2x2 piece there and quite a funky piece at the front. But I had just enough from this set, especially from the interior, which I've completely redesigned, we'll get to in a minute, just to give it that dark red look of the Resolute, Anakin's Venator. But before we get into the interior of this ship, I would like to show off these gun pieces, as in the show they are dug into the Venator, and that goes across all Venators. These gun pieces are sort of dug in, but what I've done is use the grey piece that we get to separate them to actually surround the gun turret, so it still looks like it's somewhat dug in but just gives it a different colour. And though it is standing out, it does mean that this fin here can just be flat, as there's no plates on the bottom of it until you get to the inside. And they do have little pillars in between, so I have included the grill pieces that again were already on here. Most of the pieces I've used were already a part of this somewhere, and like with the two bridges that are now all dark red, I've just taken them from one side and put them somewhere else. I suppose the only big exclusion is these pieces here, as not only the light grey pieces but also that dark red 2x2 plate and the 1x1 round plate on top in tan are all from my own collection. But I've even repurposed the guns here, and I've actually flipped them on their side. Now there is only one brick with the Technic holes coming along, so I didn't have too much of a choice. However, I think they're much better from a play scale perspective on the side, as you're going to have this on a flat sort of surface, and even when you're playing with it, it'd be much better to move them left and right so you can fire at the enemy ships rather than up and down where they're pointing either at the floor or ceiling. And even in universe, they do have more of a 360 angle, so instead of shooting up, which you've got these guns for, they're better shooting out front, which is what they're mainly used for in Star Wars. And again, the same gun design is repeated on the other side. I guess you'll just have to take my word for it, but I will flip it round and you can see just how symmetrical it is later on in the video. But I'd like to take a quick look at the engines, as there's not too much I've done. They might look the same from this angle. I'll put a better image on screen now. But the big bottom turrets that are closer to the centre of the ship have just been moved one Technic hole up, just to bring all of the engines closer together, and it just gives it more of a complete look. And as I did remove the Technic brick on the inside right at the bottom to drop the whole ship by a stud, it just means it can still slot in very nicely without causing too many problems. Now, the carry handle, which is a main feature of the ship, is still implemented in my design, and it can still be used to lift up the whole model, as you can see. However, I have got mine resting on 3 pillars with this non-Lego brand base plate that I have cut just to be able to fit on my shelf. And I've actually stolen this from my X-Wing display. It was holding up both the X-Wing and Slave 1 at the top of my shelf. However, I have given them each their own base plates so that none of the ships are connected, and it just means that the Venator can be displayed without me having to worry about the front of the ship bending, which, given my last display where I just had 1 in the centre and 2 at the back, the front of the ship was starting to lower, and I've included 1 in the middle still just to stop that happening in the middle. And this just covers all points, as it's not too strongly built. I mean, Lego itself can only hold that much pressure, and this ship is pretty sizable, as you can see, with it barely fitting in the camera angle. But of course, it is only plated at the bottom, and the Technic is holding the top, but all of the weight rests on these 3 pillars. And how I've designed these underparts and these back bits here, and even the engine, with it being a whole brick lower than it was, it still rests flat on the floor, and you don't have to worry about any of the ship getting caught and pushing up into the other plates. And speaking of which, I'll show you a picture again on screen of the underside of this front bit here, as I have slightly redesigned. The main thing I've done is taken the 4x6 dark bluish grey plate and just flipped it to the other side. Again, some minor modifications here and there, just to allow there to be a gap where the gun turret sits. But for the most part, the designs on some of this playset were just good enough to keep. Like up here where you get the plates leading to the bridge, I've actually kept that as the designers had it originally, only adding 2 plates on this whole bottom row, just to bridge the gap between the wall of the bridge and the plate holding up the guns. And this still resembles a Star Destroyer, as you do in universe get this little bridge bit coming out, this little slope, so it fits in with the build and doesn't look that bad when it's displayed. Now, I was going to do a video in about a week's time breaking this down and creating a midi scale ship. However, I do think I like this a bit too much to break it down, so perhaps I can create a midi scale ship on Studio or find another way of creating a midi scale Venator. But do let me know in the comments if you want me to build a midi scale Venator, as we do seem to be getting a few more midi scale ships in the new year. Now, midi scale is probably about half the size of this, if not just a bit more, and the ships we're rumoured to get are a Millennium Falcon and the Tantive 4 to go alongside the Super Star Destroyer we got this year, which will be pretty cool. However, it is a shame that we're not getting a Venator. I suppose with them doing a UCS Venator, we're not likely to get one anytime soon. But hopefully when it does retire, which it eventually of course will, we'll get something like the gunship we got with the retirement of the UCS gunship. But you've waited long enough, let's have a look what I've done to the inside, and you can probably just about see it there if I'm not covering the light. But I have removed Palpatine's office, and I've actually kept the chair and the table because they do look quite good. and perhaps I can use these in a mock of Palpatine's arrest, which would fit nicely as a diorama, and it'd be something we could look at getting for the 20th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, which of course is only 2 years away. The 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace coming first next year, and we see how many dioramas we're getting for that, starting off with the pod race, which again is only a rumour, but hopefully we can see some more dioramas for anniversaries of other movies. And what I've done to replace Palpatine's office is actually added a bit of a walkway here. This is meant to represent the bridge of the Star Destroyers, which of course I know is up here at the top. But for a playset, it includes the bridge, which you can stand the minifigures on. Of course, Captain Rex and more importantly, Yularen will feature mainly on this piece, and you won't be able to get the minifigures standing up when this thing closes. However, if you add a few chairs just at the side and include a few more officers, they'll definitely be able to remain seated. And all you'd have to do is possibly lay down the minifigures just on the bridge here. You can get at least 2 laying down quite comfortably. Close the hatch and the Venator is ready to fly away. Now, as for swooshability, it is quite a sturdy build. You can see it does keep wobbling on the stand that I've made for it. So the stand might not be too sturdy, but don't let that fool you. This build is very strong. I've kept most of the Technic designs. I've made a few modifications like creating that gap so that you can fit the top dark red pieces from this front wing, and of course I've altered these side wings a bit but kept most of the shape the same, and it does create a really nice small gap that isn't exactly empty, as you've got all the other Technic pieces that are keeping both the wing on and keeping the bricks together, but it just fills that gap and makes it look a lot more like the Venator than having this chunky hole along the side as with the original playset. And of course that is not an insult to Lego. They did what they could to create Palpatine's office in the middle here, and as I've said, there's less playability of this model, but I think there should be some line between playability and displayability, as this does overall look a lot better than Lego's version. So let me know down in the comments below what you think of my model, and I'll show you one more image on screen now just so you can get a feel of the entire Venator, and it still definitely looks like Jar Jar Binks from the front. Now to take a closer look at the minifigures, we start off with Yularen, who obviously is the Admiral of Anakin's Venator. And I'm very proud with my custom that I've created here. I think this does capture the essence of Yularen very well. Obviously his tag on his torso is not accurate, but I have used the dual molded legs to represent his boots, and I think that just finishes off not only Yularen but all of the other admirals and even the Imperials like General Veers. They just look so much better with this new dual molded legs. And we also have Captain Rex himself. Now I do not own a Captain Rex, so I was unable to source his helmet, but I have used one of the freshly painted helmets, as he does have a painted helmet in season 7. We just never really get to see him wear it, and it does look the same as all the other troopers without his marking. But as for Rex himself, this is just a plain trooper head. There's no scar on the back, and I think for a custom Rex it does look pretty decent without either buying someone else's figure or using any official Lego parts from a previous Captain Rex. And now if you saw the community tab yesterday, you'll see, or even the video, you'll see that I got the new C3PO from the magazine that comes with this arm printing. But you may not know that there was a poly bag for 3PO from the sequels, him with his red arm, that come with the fully golden legs with the side of the leg printing. And if you combine the two, you are left with the perfect prequel 3PO. Now, I assume this is what they'd include in any prequel UCS sets, like we got a really cool C3PO with Luke's Landspeeder, only he had the silver leg. And I'll definitely be putting this to work with some of my mocks. It's just great to see a fully gold 3PO with the side leg printing and the arm printing. But don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed, and let me know if you'd like to see me turn the Venator into any other size models, or if you want a closer look at the adjustments I've made so you too can replicate this with your Venator playset. Do subscribe for more awesome Lego content, and may the bricks be with you always.